This is Your Anxiety Toolkit, episode number 58.
Welcome to Your Anxiety Toolkit. I'm your host, Kimberly Quinlan. This podcast is fueled by three main goals. The first goal is to provide you with some extra tools to help you manage your anxiety. Second goal, to inspire you. Anxiety doesn't get to decide how you live your life. And number three, and I leave the best for last, is to provide you with one big, fat virtual hug. Because experiencing anxiety ain't easy. If that sounds good to you, let's go.
Hello, my name is Kimberly Quinlan. Thank you so much for joining me on this beautiful summer day. I'm so thrilled to have you with me and sharing with me this beautiful journey that we're all in together. Today, I'm talking about courage. And it seems to be something that everybody wants to know about. They will ask questions. Where do I find it? Where is it? How do I get it? Why don't I have it? What is courage? What do I have to do to be brave? And I'm here today to introduce another tool, which is the word and. It's a beautiful tool. It's quite simple, but it will change the way you see courage. It will change how you create a narrative about it. So often, we in our brains have this story that we can't be courageous if we're anxious. We can't be brave if we're scared or crying or panicking. That these two things can't exist in the same moment. And when we have this narrative, it takes us away from owning our own power and strength, and it moves us toward a narrative that's very fixed. I'm a weak person, I'm not strong enough, I can't handle it, I won't be able to do it, it'll never happen for me, recovery will never happen for me. And this is all very fixed thinking, right? All because of messages that we were given probably from a very early age. Actually, some nursery rhymes and some children's cartoons feed us into this, right? As much as we love Disney, sometimes Disney feeds us into these beliefs that courageousness and bravery is the knight in shining armor, the guy who doesn't show vulnerability, that is so tough, that is, often very handsome. The woman is often always beautiful. And we get fed these beliefs that there's only a certain way that you can show up with courage, and there's only a certain way that you can look in order to be brave. And we're here to break that down, because it's not true. You can be anxious and brave at this very same time. You can be panicking and crying while being the most courageous person in that room, the strongest person in that room. These are ideas that I want you to challenge. I want you to catch when you're having the beliefs that, it's an if. I can only be strong and courageous if. And I want you to see that you can be strong and courageous and, right? So let's take a look. So often as we move towards doing hard things, that's what this is all about. When we have anxiety, our job is to do the hard thing, to do the scary thing, to look fear in the eye. I want you to understand that there is an and in there. You're allowed to access your own courage without it looking perfect. And I think that's so much of the problem, is that people keep asking me, how do you find courage when they have it the whole time? Really what's happening is we get caught up in this idea that courage is supposed to look a certain way, and that I'm not courageous, or I'm not brave, or I'm not strong if it doesn't look that way. There's that if again. It doesn't have to look pretty. It doesn't have to look good. It doesn't have to look sexy. It doesn't have to look anything. It can be messy. It can be just whatever it is. We're allowed to be vulnerable while being anxious. We're allowed to be vulnerable and be brave and be courageous and be strong, right? You might see that this may sound a little repetitious, and that's because in our mind, it has been put in our brain so heavily and so rigidly that I really want to start to go into somewhat of a repetitious mode here to get you to see that both fear and courageousness, both fear and bravery can exist. And when we give ourselves permission for them to exist at the same time and for it not to be pretty, there you go. Courage is right there. It's in you. So let's take a look. What do we do if we give ourselves permission to be anxious or sad or any other feeling while being brave, right? And for it to not look pretty? What do we do? This is where we get to teach others about the and. This is where we get to teach others that it's not an if conversation, it's an and conversation. You will get probably some rebuttal to this from family members, from friends, from bosses, from colleagues, from siblings, and they might want to compete with you on this idea, and they might want to reinforce back this idea of no, Kimberly, it's an if. You're only brave if you're smiling, if you have a brave, very, tall chest and you look very, very strong, right? And this is where we can start to change the conversation and explain and educate others that no, it's actually and. Look at me, I'm doing a hard thing and I'm crying and I'm scared, but I'm doing it, and that's what bravery looks like. That's what we do. That's how we raise our next generation, right? But for you, your work here too is to educate yourself on a repetitious basis, because these beliefs run deep, really deep. And it's up to us to shift them. The world and the marketing of this generation will continue to tell you that you're only beautiful if. You're only strong if. You're only happy if. You're only successful if. The marketing business is a billion, cajillion dollar industry built on ifs. And we're here to start to educate and to acknowledge that it's not an if, it's an and. We can be successful and have failure. We can be beautiful and have things that aren't so wonderful, right? We can be more. We can be imperfect. We can be, human, right? And so really, when people ask me about where to access courage, I think the answer is in the ands, the simple sentence involving an and. And I think it's in us giving ourselves permission for it not to be beautiful and perfect all the time. Courage is there. You can't argue with me on this one. Now, some people will say to me, well, no, I actually don't think I have what it takes to get it done. And I have all this evidence because I haven't done it yet. And this is where I'm going to very quickly intervene and say, no, that's because of the thought process that keeps getting in the way. The story is what's getting in the way, not your body, not your human existence. The human body, the human brain is highly adaptable. We can learn just about anything. We can practice just about anything, but our thoughts can get in the way. So if you think you have evidence that you can't, that you're not brave enough, I would actually question whether that's actually a fact, or whether it might be just an extension of this narrative that you've been taught from a very early age. Simple things like don't cry, brave, be brave, don't cry, Or don't be anxious, there's nothing to worry about. When you as a child really felt that there was things to worry about. Your brain was either setting off the fire alarm and telling you there was, or maybe you were in actual danger. I don't know. I think it's different for every person. So the messages that we get told about anxiety can affect our experience and our belief on how strong we are. Please do an inventory. Maybe even sit down, write down the messages that you were given about strength, the messages you were given about what a courageous, brave, strong person looks like, and start to challenge whether that was based on an if sentence and not on an and sentence. I really do hope you do this inventory and ask yourself some important questions. And then give yourself permission for it to not be perfect. And there you have it. Courage was there the whole time, right? So I hope that's helpful. I do go on a little bit of a rant sometimes, but only when I really feel that it needs to be reinforced, right? It pains me to hear people think and believe that they don't have what they need to move forward, because we do. It's in us. It just might be caught up in the stories, right? So brave, courageous, strong, wonderful souls. I do hope that this brings you some strength and some courage and some bravery that you already had, I know, but it might help you access it a little more. Have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon.
Please note that this podcast or any other resources from cbtschool.com should not replace professional mental health care. If you feel you would benefit, please reach out to a provider in your area. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for supporting cbtschool.com.